I hope this finds you both well. Back in the early 1990s, when my best friend Sally graduated from college, she decided to take a road trip to get a little R&R. She asked me if I wanted to accompany her. I had a vacation from work coming up anyway, so I agreed. We take off with several destinations in mind, mostly side attractions and so on. One of the stops, however, was the old T&T bunkers. We drove all night and arrived very late, around 11:45 p.m., almost midnight. We walked around, sharing one flashlight that we had between us. A little spooky around that time, I must say. We looked at a few of the igloos and was about to head back down to look for the rest. We barely get taken off on foot when Sally stops dead in her tracks. I asked what was wrong, and she just grabs my arm tightly in fear. She mentioned she had a bad feeling and that we needed to return to the car. Not questioning a bad feeling, we turn and start to retrace our steps back to the car. We're about to pass the last igloo when we hear what sounds like screaming, screeching, and booming coming from inside of it. We both freeze in sheer panic. Mind you, we only got a quick glimpse of them, but we know without a shadow of a doubt what we witnessed. This man creature-like thing with long hair and light green skin comes rushing out of the igloo. It takes a quick glance behind it as it's running out, with this super loud whooshing flaps come out of the igloo. It's Mothman. The green thing is beyond scared. Mothman flies out and grabs the green creature by the shoulders and flies up and away. The green creature was fighting with everything it had, but it was no match. We run to the car and zoom out of there. Sally's brother is a huge Mothman fan. We return home, no longer enthusiastic about seeing anything else, and tell him about it. He thinks that the green one was there to hurt us, and the Mothman was there to save us. What do you guys think?
My story takes place in 2009 when my best friend and I would stay most of the afternoons out in her backyard. She lived in an old historic building on First Avenue in Gallipolis, Ohio, right on the river. The first encounter we had with whatever this creature was, we were sitting there talking about school when we heard a bat or something circling around the yard pretty close. Next thing we know, something hits her roof, but it was too dark to see what. The thing sounded like a grown man jumping and landing on her roof. We both got up and tried to see what it was, but it had stopped moving at the moment, and you could almost feel an electric or static type feeling, but still calm at the same time. For a while that night, we could hear something out on the roof. We kept going out to see what it was and walking around back. And then finally, we heard a wind tunnel type sound start up and could almost feel a breeze coming from the roof. Then something landed in the tree above the table in her backyard, causing branches to fall out of the tree. We stood there frozen as it jumped to a different tree, and the same thing happened again. Branches fell, and you could hear the whirlwind type sound. We ran inside very quickly after that. Well, at that point, we started to think we were crazy, or it was just some big owl. It happened a few more times. The exact same thing happened. It would land on the roof, and then you would hear a whirlwind type sound, and it would be gone. A few nights go by, and my friend's boyfriend was there. We told him about what happened before, and he thought we were just both crazy. My friend had gotten a new metal roof at the time, and that night we heard the thing again. And the air got still and full of static or energy again. And then, sure enough, whatever it was landed on the roof. This time, you could hear him sliding around like nails on a chalkboard. He slid down and off the roof and between two buildings. Terrified, we made her boyfriend go check out and see what it was. He walked over to where it had fell and stopped dead in his tracks, pointing his finger out. He then motioned for both of us to come look. Very calmly, I got up and walked up behind him. As soon as I looked, I saw a figure that was black and had red, reflective, glowing eyes, like an old car tail lights. And I would say it was about 3 feet taller than I am. I'm 5'4". My brain didn't have enough time to process what I had seen before it seemed to shoot straight off into the air and disappear. At this point, we knew we weren't crazy because her boyfriend had seen it as well, and he was very shaken up by this, not wanting to believe what he had seen. Well, a few months went by, and we had not experienced anything else. We figured whatever it was had migrated on. I started talking to this guy who was the big, manly, tough guy type, and he came over to hang out with us one night. We started telling him about our experiences, and then not 5 minutes later, without warning, something big flew down into the yard. This time you could almost see the wings and outline of whatever it was. It swooped down, and then it swooped right back up. The guy ran out of her backyard screaming, "What the heck was that?" He never returned to my friend's house again after that. That was the last time either one of us had an experience like that. We believed that whatever it was kind of looking over us. It made us both feel very safe when it was around. About 2 years later, I went to the Mothman Diner in Point Pleasant, where the old lady with the beehive hairstyle worked. Her name was Carolyn Harris. Sadly, she passed away, but told her that I believed in Mothman and told her my story and said we always heard a bat. Then she stopped and told me that whatever it was eats bats, and all the hair stood straight up on my body. I've believed in Mothman ever since.
Greetings. I wanted to share this with you and all your listeners about a Mothman encounter my husband and I had back in the late 1980s. So there we were, just married. My husband Don was just out of basic training for the military. I closed down my flower shop temporarily for the wedding and honeymoon. Don and his family, being Point Pleasant, West Virginia natives, invited us to stay the night with them on our way through North Carolina, where we were having the honeymoon. While we were there, it was getting late. His parents went off to bed. Well, to us being young, full of excitement and wonder, things like that, still wide awake at 10 p.m. Not wanting to disturb his parents or anything, we decided to leave and just go out for a drive to wind down. He decided to take me to the old T&T bunkers. It's a really neat place with some cool history, but a little creepy at night, especially when you're alone. And, who goes to old bunkers and things like that without thinking of the legendary Mothman? We looked at the old bunkers and heard some creepy noises and things like that. I couldn't help but bring it up. You reckon maybe old Mothman is making them noises? Don turned around and looked at me, the kind of look on his face that said, "Seriously? Sure you don't believe in that old myth?" He said, "Lord, I'm telling you, I've lived here all my life. I've been in these areas literally more times than I can count. Never seen or heard anything remotely close to what I would say was Mothman. Unless you include that time some buddies and I kind of run across an old rabid possum. You get them from time to time out in the hills. We continued our evening of enjoyment and joking around and things. We avoided the main road and stuff and just took back roads, less traffic, because headlights at night hurt my eyes. Well, did you know any country person knows? Whenever you're on an old back road, you gotta use the bathroom, what do? You pull over and find a tree. Well, that's what Don did. So there we were on the side of the road. Don puts it in park, leaves the motor running, headlights on, and runs across the road for him to find a tree. I was fidgeting with the radio for a couple of minutes, then bam, something passed the car. I let out a scream like they weren't no tomorrow. Don walks back laughing and says, "What's wrong? Mothman got your tongue?" So I laughed a little bit, but kind of gave him a look of anger too. So I shook my head. When he started to walk back across the front of the car to get back in the driver's door. About that time, he stopped right in front of the driver's headlight, just staring straight up in the air, right behind the car, eyes wide open, his chin cupped. Reached down there and dusted his shoes off. I yelled at the window, "Ha ha ha, very funny, real cute." But he never flinched. I opened the door to tell him to get in the car, and it ain't funny anymore. Still no response. I scooted over to the driver's seat and blew the horn. He jumped, but not because of the horn, but because of a real loud screech. Sounded like something right out of an old scary movie. Ain't no way I'd sit there and put that into words, even if my life depended on it. His feet finally broke traction, and he bolted for the door. Leaped in, barely as I had time to return to my seat. He takes off, tires are spinning, throwing gravel everywhere. Almost hits the ditch line 4 or 5 times, driving like a maniac till we reached town. So he finally pulled into a gas station and looks over at me, and there was tears streaming down my face, but he ain't uttering not a single sound. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't get out of the car, looking around like a madman at every window. Finally managed to crawl across and get him over the passenger seat, and I drove us back to his parents' house. We stayed outside underneath the streetlight till the sun come up. Again, he wouldn't get out of the car, not even for a little bit to run to the door. The whole time we sat there, he'd go from window to window, not saying a word, oftentimes staring out in space, almost looking like he weren't even really there. It took what seemed like hours to finally get him to calm down enough to explain what happened. He said as he was walking in front of the car, something got his attention. A big old set of red eyes stared at him. So at first he thought it might have been lights from hunters or something like that, till it seemed to draw him in, kind of like a trance-like thing. He said no matter what he did, he couldn't look away, and the whole time feeling he was doomed. Said he had some of the strangest feelings like he had never experienced before, and he didn't really know how to put it into words. Said it was like life had just ended right then and there, and that's when I told him what happened, from my point of view. Said to him, it was as fast as a blink of an eye. After that, my poor Don began having terrible nightmares, and I mean terrible ones. Oftentimes at night, said he'd wake up screaming and hollering, kicking, scare me half to death. Other times he'd wake up thinking something was right there in the room with us. He did have to seek some professional help for months after that. Well, years later, he's back to his old self. But nowadays, he refuses to return to that old road, and usually tries to get his parents to come visit us on special occasions and holidays. And my Donald, he's no little man by no means. He's 6'4", 260. Tough as nails. Built like a Mack truck. But he won't even discuss Mothman.
I live in a small town called Jesseville, Arkansas. It's just outside of Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, and I go by the name of Lone Wolf. Well, this happened to me last night / early this morning. I live in a very small camper. Last night wasn't any different than any other night. There are about 2 mules, 2 ponies, and 6 or so horses that freely roam the 64-acre property that I live on. I leave to go to work at about 4 in the morning, so I go to bed early at about 6 or 7 p.m. Sometimes in the night, I'll hear roaming of animals here and there, or some of them will come and scratch themselves by rubbing their bodies against the camper. Nothing too strange about that. Well, about a week ago, I changed my sleeping position due to the shining of headlights through the camper windows where my niece comes home from work late at night. But last night, I was more restless than usual. There were a lot more noises outside the camper than there normally are. There was also something pounding on my camper in the middle of the night. I remember waking up due to a light that was very bright coming through the window. For a moment, I thought it was just my niece again. I realized the window without a curtain is facing the wooded part of the property. I was awake then. It wasn't an ordinary type of light. It was very intense and had an orange-red glow to it, almost like the sun setting. I looked out the window but couldn't see anything. I had the sense that someone was watching me. Believing that there was a logical explanation for everything, I just rolled over and went back to sleep. Or I should say, I tried to. I felt the camper move like something was pushing on it, but thought it was just a mule or a horse. Then there was a pounding on the camper again. I have an electric heater in the camper and remember waking up very cold and had the sense that I wasn't alone. I opened my eyes and thought I saw a large black shadow looking at me for a few seconds, but then it was gone. I breathed very deeply for a few moments and saw my breath in the air. It was extremely cold in the camper for a couple of minutes. I looked at the clock and saw it was time to go to work. I got up, got changed, and checked the door to make sure it was still locked, which it was. I went out to my van and started it, turned on the lights, and noticed that there were a few feed buckets on the ground. I picked them up and put them in the back of my brother's truck. I drove out and opened up the closed gate and then proceeded to drive to work. I usually have about a 45-minute drive to work. I remember going through an S-curve and seeing a plastic bag on a tree on the right side of the road. For some reason, this caught my attention, but I'm not sure why. Just after I turned my head, all of a sudden I saw a swarm of about 100 or so like birds or bats, moths. I just didn't really know. It happened so fast, coming right down the middle of the road. I cracked the steering wheel hard to the left and tried to avoid as much as I could with them everywhere like they were. I remember hearing thuds coming off my van and seeing things bounce off my windshield in the front of my van. It was like they all had these small, bright red eyes or something. They were like tracing flashes off my van. Strange and bizarre, yes indeed. It was around 4:15 a.m. in the dark. No birds are flying at that time, and it's winter, and the bats are usually dormant. It's too cold for insects right now. I just know these things look like bats to be the closest thing I could think of. I never really stopped and just kept on driving to work. When I got to work, I left the lights on and got out and checked for any damages. There weren't none. I was a little shaken up and kept faith in telling him what happened. I still had a sense that there was something watching me and kept looking over my shoulder all day long. My friend from work told me about Mothman and said I should watch the movie and check out the net and see if there was anything that compared to what happened to me. He also told me to let him know what goes on for the next couple of days. Boy, that was something really nice to hear, thinking I was done with this ordeal. All throughout my workday, I tried to make sense of any of this, and I couldn't. I finished out my workday and drove back home after. I even stopped where I thought I saw the plastic bag in the tree and looked all over for something, and I couldn't find anything. I got home and told my brother I still had this feeling something was watching me. Also, the buckets I put in the back of his truck that morning were on the porch, and the gate for the yard to my brother's house was open, and his Colt stud was loose. We know no one put the buckets on the porch. It was also said that something during the time I left for work and the time that everyone else got up here, that there was knocking at the front door of my brother's house. I know I picked up the buckets and put them in the bed of the truck, and the yard gate was closed. I saw the Colt watching me the whole time. The yard gate was closed. Can you make any sense of this? Thank y'all for listening to my story again. Lone Wolf. I've shared this story before. I am reluctant to share it again. I'm sure it'll sound like I'm bat crazy. But the truth is, this happened without a doubt. I live in southern Michigan of the USA. A couple years back in 2019, I was on my way home from a friend's house. It was around 11 p.m. I was alone in my F-150 truck. I was sitting at a red light about a mile from my house. I was completely sober. I don't do drugs or drink. There were no other cars at the intersection, just me. As I waited for the light to turn green, something fluttering caught my eye in the rearview mirror. At first, I thought it was a big bird, but as I continued to stare, I saw that this was no bird. It was huge, flying about 6 to 8 feet above the road behind me, heading directly at me. It was probably a good city block behind when I saw its wings flapping. As it got closer, I could see each wing had about a 6-foot span. It had a human-type body and was all black. I froze in fear. I may have even stopped breathing when I saw its big red eyes looking right at me. My mind raced, trying to justify what I was seeing. My eyes darted quickly around looking for flags, banners, some kind of something that would possibly tell me what had created the image I was seeing in the road. There was nothing. It just about reached the bed of my truck when the light turned green and I broke my stare, then floored it out of there. Funny how your mind races and your body freezes while you're trying to justify what you're seeing. That was the most awful fear I have ever experienced. When I got home, I was trembling. Reality set in. To this day, I still don't know what the heck I saw. I searched the net, get an idea of what I saw, and later found this group. I never saw it again, and I hope that I never do.
It started in July of 2022, when we went up to West Virginia State Prison for a reptile show. We were maybe 2 hours away from Point Pleasant, and thought it would only add about an hour onto the drive back home, so we figured we'd drop by. On the drive, I started to get a headache. I thought it was maybe because, I was tired, but the closer we got, the worse it got. As soon as we got through the floodgates of the town, I had a feeling in my stomach, like going down the first drop on a roller coaster. Eventually, I felt better, but fast forward a few months. I was walking to work early one morning, right before Halloween. It was still dark around 6 a.m. when I saw red circles in a tree and felt a feeling of dread. I thought maybe it was some Halloween decorations, but I checked the next day on my way to work, and there were no red lights there. And they haven't been there since. Then about a month after my dad passed. So maybe it was or wasn't just a coincidence, but a warning. During 2020, my friend and I started playing Fallout 76 just to have something to do. We really love seeing all the West Virginia cryptids in the game and learning about their lore. We lived sort of nearby in Pittsburgh, but had never really been. Well, fast forward a few months, we decided to go to Point Pleasant on our own. We had wanted to go to the Mothman Festival, but it had been canceled that year due to the virus. We decided to go a few weeks later anyway to try to check out the town and all that. Well, we went by the museum and a bunch of the stores. Definitely recommend it. Well, it starts getting late on us, and we're both trying out the Mothman pizza. And we get the idea, hey, let's go out to the TNT area where most of the sightings were supposed to have taken place. Big mistake. We get out there just as the sun is going down. Due to lack of planning, we only have our phones for flashlights. But we checked things out anyway, and even went to some of the bunkers. Eventually, we got to a bunker that was shut. We were dying to see what was inside, so we opened up the metal doors and looked around inside. There wasn't anything interesting in it, other than just some old pipes and tools. So we were looking around. The metal doors to it slammed shut. As you can imagine, we are freaked out. Them doors are very big and heavy. I don't think the wind could close them. Scared and not knowing what to do, we eventually decided to go back out and see what happened. After looking around, we saw nothing and could only hear frogs chirping. Then we hear a loud screech sound coming from behind us at the bunker. We turned around and saw a figure way on top of the bunker. I shot my phone line at it and only saw a dark colored figure for a split second, and then it was gone. I can't say for sure, all happened so fast, but I think it had orange or reddish colored eyes reflecting back at me. Now I can't stop wondering if I actually saw the Mothman. Hey, Spooky Appalachia. Came across your YouTube channel from the Mothman Sightings Facebook group, and think I may have encountered it or a similar creature back in 2002. I was driving home for an office party in December of 2002. No, I had not been drinking. I don't touch the stuff. I was at a stoplight when I saw some bushes to my right wiggling. At first, I thought it was just the wind. Then I saw it pop out. It was a dark creature. I couldn't tell the exact color since it was dark outside. It was maybe 6 or 7 feet tall. No visible head. I also don't remember it having arms. It did look like it had wings. Either red or orange reflective looking eyes. I didn't get a great look at it, but it looked more like a cross between a bird and a man than a moth. Then it went right back into the bushes. I sat there staring at the bushes until another car came up behind me. It was like I was in some kind of trance. I snapped out of it and booked it home. I had no idea what I saw. Never really talked about it. I always figured people would think I was crazy. Do you think this could have been the Mothman?
My daughter and I were sitting in our living room when we heard something big land on our metal roof. Not long after, I started to hear what sounded like biting sounds at our front door. And we could hear heavy breathing sounds. My daughter and I were pretty frightened, but we managed to gather the courage to go outside and look and see what it was. We couldn't see a thing with it being 12 o'clock at night, not even with a flashlight shined up there. We could hear what sounded like this huge screaming bird was on our roof. It was also breathing very loudly, and you could hear its wings and what sounded like a horrible screaming sound in between the breathing. Eventually, we heard it hop over to the old oak tree next to the house, and then after that, it sounded like it took off somewhere. We had no idea what was going on. About the same week, I had a vision, like a projector screen, cars piling up on the bridge that we were going to drive over that day. I changed my mind, and it was on the news next week that there was an accident on the bridge. So I'm guessing maybe it was warning me about the bridge. Let me know what you think. My girlfriend and I witnessed an unexplained object or creature on the roof of a building in Mattapan Square back in May of 2012. We work for her dad's security company, and in May we had the night shift at a construction site on Blue Hill Avenue. I had been sitting in her car, and we had just gotten into an argument. I decided to get in my own van to get away from her for a while. As I was surfing the web on my cell phone, I noticed something moving on the roof of the building next to the job site. I looked up and saw a fairly large shadowy figure walking or gliding along the rooftop. As I was peering out my window at it, it stopped and turned towards the cars. The best way I can describe it is that it looked almost identical to the sketch the teenagers drew after the first Mothman sighting in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. It had what looked to be large feathery wings and two almond golden eyes. I know that is not your typical Mothman description, but I don't know what else it could have been. After about 3 to 5 minutes of sitting there, it jumped off the roof, flying towards Quincy and Braintree. I watched it fly for about 5 minutes before it was out of sight. The object or creature flew in odd patterns, dipping and flying side to side, but not in a straight line. The only way I saw it was illuminated in a golden bright light. I couldn't tell if it was the moon's reflection or if it was generating its own light. I only got a look at it in the dark. I hear stories of UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and demons, and ask myself, can they all be real or maybe just some? I believe that we have only scratched the surface of reality, and the truth is sometimes stranger than fiction.
Well, what did you guys think? That's 10 Mothman sighting stories sent to us by you guys, the fans. I loved them, and I couldn't think of a better time to put these out than right before the Mothman Festival, right around the anniversary of the first most famous sighting. It's just perfect. I loved working on this one. I loved doing the editing. And big thanks to my buddy Jeff, who worked so hard making all these animations from the images I made. Thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you here. Oh, man. These were amazing. Creepy, too. Oh, my gosh. Could you imagine just, being at home or driving somewhere and running into something like this? Oh, man, oh man. Could be like that one lady just driving home innocently and seeing that flying out her rear view mirror. Then there's the people that go up to the TNT area at night. Oh my gosh, I would never go there at night. Even without Mothman, so much stuff has gone on out there. I don't think I would set foot there at night, to be honest. Not alone. I know some of my friends who do paranormal research go up there in groups. I definitely would recommend doing that if you're going to go up there at night. Man, oh man. Oh. Woo. Oh, and then the one, well, actually we had two where something was up on the roof Man, oh man. Yeah, definitely want to hear what you guys think of these stories. I've got many, many more. I've got a couple more I need to record that I'll put out soon-ish. And I hope you enjoy those and you enjoyed these. Wow. So, yeah, be sure to like, share it out, subscribe, tell all your friends. Listen to this on your way to the Mothman Festival. You wouldn't be able to hear it too good at the Mothman Festival because, man, it's packed these days. I remember back before 2018, wasn't anything like it is now. And if you've got a Mothman or possible Mothman sighting story you would like to send in, you can email us at spookyappalachia@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and don't forget, stay spooky.